Hello, Antichrist. My name is Dewulf. I'm the guitar player and the songwriter in the band called The Wring, W-R-I-N-G. I've always wanted to be interviewed by the Antichrist, so this is awesome. Thanks for having me on. The Wring is a proggy hard rock kind of band from Northern Ontario, Canada. We started around 2015 and released the first album in 2017. Did some shows, had some fun, it was good. And then the guys, we're kind of in a funny town here, not much of a scene for metal or prog or anything like that. And it's hard to make money that way, so it didn't really work out with the other guys. They didn't want to stick around, so they moved on. I had lots of material. I wanted to write more songs. I wanted to play more songs. So I stuck it out and I did 3 more albums, as I call it The Wring, but it's still me, and used session musicians to complete those other 3 albums. The name The Wring, it's so hard to pick a name for a band these days. Like, everything's taken. It could be some 12-year-old in his basement, but he decides that he's gonna take the Facebook page or whatever. So it's very difficult to choose a name. But I had written a song for the first album called The Wring, a bit of a play on words between ring, like wringing of your hands in dismay, and the ringing of the phone. It's kind of a creepy, dark song. And we went through name after name and couldn't find one that hadn't already been taken. So my drummer at the time said, "Hey, how about The Wring? It's a cool name." And it hadn't been taken, not really. There was a band from the 60s or something, but thought it was good and it stuck. So here we are, 8 years later or whatever, and it's still mine. The new album coming out in September of 2024, just around the corner, is called Nemesis, and it's the 4th album, so it's continuation. I write in the same kind of style. Each album I write for myself. I don't really write for anybody else. I make songs that I hope are somewhat original and make me happy and have some sort of unique flavor to them or whatever. I spend a lot of time, it's riffs. I write on guitar. I'm a guitar player. I write on guitar and I come up with these things and then listen to them maybe a week or 2 weeks or a month later and decide if they're still worthy of moving forward. And if they are, then then I start to think about, are they original enough, or have I stolen something from somebody else that's a bit too stolen, and then I change it around. So use every tool at my disposal to try and come up with something that I would find interesting to listen to, and then hopefully the person who likes what I like would be the same. So that's sort of the thought process behind Nemesis. It's 8 songs, 1 instrumental, the rest of lyrics. Players on this record, Reggie Hache, he played bass on the last one, and this one he's singing as well. Amazing bass player, like just killer bass player. And he's an amazing singer as well. A very good sense of music and composition and that sort of thing. And he killed it, I think, here in both counts. Reggie's been a great collaborator, and I give these guys demos of what I think the song should be, and then they take it in their own direction. And Reggie's really took off with that. He's pretty amazing. I got a guy out of Los Angeles, Brian Abbott, to play drums. And players these days are just off the charts. Like, they're just so good. I had Marco Miniman on the last album and Thomas Lang on the one before that. And, those guys are household names if you're a drummer. And Kyle is he was there. Like, he just crushed it. Just an amazing sense of time and so precise. It was great fun. And I should also mention, the sort of 4th member here is Francis Perron from Radicart Studios. Francis is a mixing engineer, but he's also a producer. He's an interesting cat. He did a few of the last Voivod albums, so he's got a couple of Junos under his belt from that, and just a great sense of things, and such a wonderful guy. So it was very fun to work with him. He did the last record as well. So again, we have a bit of a rapport now, and it's fun to work with him. So the song, or the concept, I guess you could say, Nemesis, the name came at the end. I had a different name chosen, and the whole, ridiculous cover, sort of concept or whatever. But I started looking at the nature of the songs, and more in the words than anything. And I think I write most of the lyrics from the news, from watching the news. And I mean, the world is upside down, right? Like, COVID was bad, but we're past that now, and we're into other things. And you look at what's happening in the U.S. and in Europe and Canada, really, like everywhere. It's everywhere. So, there's everything is so polarized. It's easy to find things to write about because for someone who hopes one day that the world will be a better place for my son, that somebody sometime is going to figure this stuff out, and we're going to stop like being in this state of saying horrible things all the time. Like, it's gross, but it's great for lyric writing because this is what inspires all of the lyrics on Nemesis, pretty much. A nemesis by definition is an invincible enemy, an unstoppable force, someone that pursues you and beats you down, your whole life, kind of thing. We all have those, and trying to deal with those, is really what Nemesis is about. The album and the lyrics, and is how people might deal with those sorts of situations. And there's all kinds, whether it's a bad breakup or the political scene or whatever. There's Nemesis situations everywhere. So that's kind of what the overall, it's not really a concept album, but that's the overarching sort of theme, I guess you could say, of most of the songs. The cover art is basically a black background with jellyfish, a red jellyfish. And as I said, I had a much sort of bigger concept and all kinds of crazy ideas. But I have a friend who's a graphic designer, and he, the same thing happened on the last record where I had this elaborate idea and so on. And then he went, okay, here's, I get it. So here's 4 or 5 examples, or samples of what it might look like with your idea. And by the way, here's one, I'll stick one on the end of something that I think might work, meaning him. And of course, his is always better than mine because you have to, if you're not a painter, don't paint. I'm not a graphic designer. So, of course you see someone else's effort and you realize that that's the right thing. So, the jellyfish is kind of the canary in the coal mine, right? Like, it's lethal to humans, it's food for turtles, and I think it's sensitive to climate change. So in many ways, it's a circle of Nemesis, it's an interesting image or icon, I guess, of the concept and, of today, of what we're dealing with today all over the world. What do I do for a living? Because it's very difficult it's impossible as an independent artist without, currently, because I'm studio, I don't have the ability to tour. I live in a place where musicians are not interested in doing the sorts of things that I do. So I'm sort of stuck, doing it on my own and using studio guys from far away. And so I can't tour. So, music is free. So, you have to make a living somewhere. So I've done lots of different things. I've owned retail stores and worked in construction. And, you do what you got to do. And you if you do well enough, then you can buy some nice toys and some nice gear, and and then you work to live, and then you feed your soul with music, which is what I do, and it's very, very rewarding. And I've been fortunate with my working career to be able to do that sort of thing, because it's impossible to make any money, it seems, at music. Heavy music has been, really since a teenager. I started playing guitar at a very young age and loved guitar. There was a mystique about it. I don't even know, I didn't really practice, because you get those exercises and they're so boring and whatever, but you grab the guitar out of the case 5 minutes before the lesson or half an hour before the lesson and try not to look like a fool in the lesson. But, you do that for enough years and you do absorb things. So by the time I hit my teens, I could play music, I could read music, I could, I had facility on the guitar. I had a lot of tools, but I had no passion, because I hadn't found it yet. And then I did. And you discover Iron Maiden, and you discover Judas Priest, and you discover all these things, and it was just wow. And then Randy Rhoads, and you keep going from there, and it's like miracle after miracle. You discover these guys. Megadeth, of course. Rush has been a lifetime love for me, and especially living not very far from where they grew up. It's amazing. And then Opeth and Tool and Mastodon. Like you could go on and on and on. And I know them all, and I love them all. And I'm a student and a fan and all that sort of thing. And there's nothing like it, being in a show, sitting there and playing, standing in front of a crowd, doing that stuff with my own music is so incredibly gratifying. Even though not a lot of money in it, but it's still wild, worth every penny. Obstacles, I think the biggest obstacle I've had was, we did the first record as a band. So, we got together in 2015, we jammed out, I had demos, I gave them to the fellas, we jammed them out, we practiced all the time, it was so wonderful. Like, you get together in a room with some guys and you turn the amps up very loud and just rip it. And it's amazing. And, we did that, and we recorded a record and put the record out, and we did some shows to support it, opening for, Anvil and Diamond Head and some of my heroes. It was so much fun. But, as an opening band, original band, in a place like this, you don't get paid too much. So, the other guys kind of lost interest in it, but I didn't. So, that was my obstacle. So I'm standing there, with my dick in my hand, essentially, with no band. And it was tough at that moment, but I thought, okay, wait, a friend of mine said, well, the world is big and the internet is a tool. So use the internet, use the tool, and find the world, right? So he connected me actually with a couple of pro guys, and Thomas Lang was one, and Mark Bonilla, Brian Beller, some big names. These guys have done some amazing things, like just incredible careers, and I think the lucky thing for me was that COVID was starting at the time. So they were at home. So, I send an email and say, hey, listen, Thomas, I have, songs I want to record. Could you play the drums? And he said, send them over, let me listen. And so I did, and he did, and he said, I'm in. Here's what it costs. And it was shockingly reasonable with all these guys, really. And so it went. So I did Project Cypher, the second record, that way. And it was wonderful experience. Got, John Asher put it out to the world, and wow, what a incredibly gratifying thing. And it went from there. And I did another record, in 2022 called Spectra, the third record, and same things, Marco Miniman, and, I hooked up with Reggie Hache. I used Chandler Mogul on vocals, and these guys were just like super pro and super fun and very gracious, because they didn't have to do this, and they didn't get paid enough to really put the amount of care into it that they did. So obstacles, you just keep going. If you love the music, you just keep going. Non-heavy artist I'd like to collaborate with, I don't even know. Like I'd say Robert Fripp, but I'd be absolutely terrified to be in a room with Robert Fripp with a guitar in my hands. I don't even know what I would do. So I think safe in my in my studio here, I'm going to say Robert Fripp, because he's not really heavy. It's not really at all, because he's so interesting and he's done so many interesting things, and you just love to just try and understand how that guy thinks, because it's something else. So I pick Robert Fripp, even though I'd be scared to death to even walk into the room with the guy. Prog music, prog music is just such a broad term now. In the 70s, you kind of knew what that was, right? It was Yes, it was Genesis, it was 15-minute songs, or close to the edge. What is that, 22 minutes or something like that? Like these long, like Relayer has 3 songs, like they're you could call it art rock. It almost wasn't. I don't even know if it was prog or art rock. I don't even know, but Pink Floyd, like whatever, right? anything with odd time and long songs and, interesting bits that people don't understand, I guess, is prog. But, it's changed a lot. And you can listen to any metal band, like listen to Voivod. They got Dan Mongrain on guitar. Like, he's a jazz guy. You listen to his solos and it's unreal. Like, it's so clever and so well done. Dave Davidson from Revocation, like, oh, like he's prog in a bottle, right? But being played over, death metal or whatever, right? So I think all of these, prog has become such a wide-reaching term. Like, it's not really isolated to a certain basket anymore. It's a lot of different types of guys. To me, the originators, and the guys that I still always go back to is, Rush, of course, Tool, and my favorite is Opeth. Because they make songs too, so it's not just ripping. There's real structure and real songs that you can connect with, and I think those are my favorite guys. AI for cover art, I could care less. I don't have an opinion that way. Making music, I don't know that they can duplicate it. Maybe they can imitate the form, but you need a humanity in there, so I'm not too concerned about that. And if they're going to be good at replicating stuff, it's going to be pop music, which I could care less about, really. First album I ever bought with my own money was Kiss Dynasty. It's a good record. It's their disco record. I know this. I Was Made for Loving You and all that. But there's some very good songs on that. And Ace was on fire. I think that was the last real record that Ace did with Kiss. And there's some very good solos on that record. I still listen to it from time to time. And I listen to the most brutal metal you can think of, but I still go back to that one. It's got some good stuff. Strange fan interactions at a show not that long ago. Guy came up to me after the show and he reached into his pocket, he pulled out his wallet, and he goes, "You guys were great," and he had hundreds, like a bunch of $100 bills in his wallet, and he tried to give me one. I'm like, "Thanks for coming, like you don't need to pay me." But he insisted, so I just said, "Okay, I'm gonna take it and I'm gonna go to buy a couple of t-shirts and I'll give them away," which I did. So it wasn't weird, it was just unusual, and I'm glad that the guy enjoyed the show, so it's gratifying in some way, I guess, right? Worst job I've ever had, I went to business school. I took university business, and out of there, they put you on train tracks into the corporate world, and I worked 1 year at Xerox, selling office equipment, photocopiers, typewriters, and all kinds of, I'm surprised I didn't shoot my own head off. It was the worst thing ever. And I got out of that as quickly as I could, but I think I lasted a year, but oh my God, yeah, bad, very bad. My favorite non-metal song, or non-rock song, I guess. I try to study jazz these days. I'm trying to understand it, and it's hard. Like, I'm in kindergarten, it's ridiculous, right? It's so difficult but also so fascinating to me, absolutely fascinating. So my favorite song right now is Giant Steps, John Coltrane. I'm trying to learn that on guitar, and yeah, it's something. Future plans for the Wring. I keep doing my thing, and Reggie Haché, as I mentioned, played bass and sang on the Nemesis record. He was living in Vancouver, which is about 4,000 miles from me, but he's moving closer. So once he moves closer in the next month or so, I really hope that we can collaborate in person. When the Wring played live, it was absolutely wonderful, and I'd love to do that again. So if he's closer, that might be a possibility. Do another record, do something, but I will keep playing no matter what. So listen to the Wring, please, and check out the new album. Nemesis comes out on September 27th. Thanks for having me.